And as the new Steve Jobs biography hits stores today, the author tells 60 Minutes how Jobs changed his life and his focus while battling the cancer that eventually took his life.
He started focusing on his family again as well. And it was a painful, brutal struggle. And he would talk often to me about the pain.
We'll hear more from Walter Isaacson early this Monday morning, October 24th, 2011.
From CBS.
We have a revealing look at the late Steve Jobs. It happened last night. You may have seen it on 60 Minutes. Correspondent Steve Kroft spoke with Walter Isaacson, whose new biography of the Apple founder is out this morning.
Isaacson did more than 40 interviews with Jobs, and he paints a portrait of a complex and private man who often struggled with himself.
He had lots of flaws.
He was very petulant. He was very brittle. He could be very, very mean to people at times. And whether it was to a waitress in a restaurant or to a guy who had stayed up all night coding, he could just really just go at them and say, you're doing this all wrong. It's horrible. And you'd say, why did you do that? Why weren't you nicer? And he'd say, I really want to be with people who demand perfection. And this is who I am.
In 2009, Jobs secretly received a liver transplant after years of suffering from pancreatic cancer. He gave his first interview to Isaacson shortly after that, and they continued speaking until just a few weeks before Jobs died.
What were those last 2.5 years of his life like?
He talked a lot to me about what happened when he got sick and how it focused him. He said he no longer wanted to go out, no longer wanted to travel the world. He would focus on the products. He knew the couple of things he wanted to do, which was the iPhone and then the iPad. He had a few other visions. I think he would have loved to have conquered television. He would love to make an easy-to-use television set. So he had those things, but he started focusing on his family again as well. And it was a painful, brutal struggle. And he would talk often to me about the pain.
And joining us now is Andy Serwer, managing editor of Fortune magazine, who also interviewed Steve Jobs on a number of occasions.
And was on the receiving end of a number of phone calls from Steve Jobs, too. The latest issue of Fortune on newsstands today includes an exclusive excerpt from Walter Isaacson's book. Always nice to have you with us. Good morning.
Thanks. Good to have you with us. He did. He took shots at lots of people. I mean, he wasn't, I guess, to some as nice as you would think a guy who was that brilliant would be. And we've heard over and over again that he did have this kind of this acerbic personality, but he didn't spare many, did he?
Well, that's right. I mean, the big thing for him was, making products for Apple Computer, getting things done that he wanted to get done. And if he had to be charming to make that happen, he would. If he needed to be tough and a jerk, quite frankly, he would do that as well. The whole point was creating new products.
It's interesting because in this excerpt in Fortune magazine, it talks about one of those products that he wanted to create was software for, I guess it was the Apple II at the time, but for Apple computers. So he actually called on Bill Gates.
Right.
Brings Bill Gates down with a team of people, has him develop all this software, and then, oh, lo and behold, later on, we get Windows. What happened in that whole mess that went on between the two of them?
Well, the relationship between Bill Gates and Steve Jobs is really, one of the most important business relationships of our time. And they're really parallel universe twins, born in 1955, both dropped out of college, both computer and business savants. And they started to get to know each other, as you suggest, Eric, around 1980, working on software for Apple, which was the bigger company at that point, of course. And what happened after a while is that Bill Gates saw that Steve Jobs' idea of software was better than his idea, so he borrowed a lot of those ideas, incorporated them into Windows, which helped Microsoft become more successful, which helped Microsoft eclipse Apple, and led to Apple's decline temporarily for a number of years. Steve Jobs leaves the company, he goes off into the wilderness, and the relationship is very, very complicated that way.
One of the things in the book, he talks about this magical thinking, that he was brilliant enough that he could overcome anything, anyone, almost this air of invincibility. And then we also on 60 Minutes learned last night that he put off cancer surgery 9 months after finding out that he had it. Was that the type of thing where he was almost so stubborn that he thought he could basically overcome this cancer, maybe not have the surgery in the timely fashion as he should have?
Right. I mean, stubborn, iconoclastic, could see around corners, but of course, like any other human being, not always right. I mean, he failed so far making Apple TV. That didn't work out. his decision to postpone surgery or to seek alternative medicine treatments for his cancer turned out probably to be a very, very bad idea. And, you know, he couldn't be talked out of it. And he was someone who was so sure of his opinions that sometimes it led him astray.
We have about 30 seconds. Anything that you're learning, not just since his death obviously, but also in things that are coming out of this biography that really surprises you about him or about his life?
Well, you know, as we suggested earlier on, he took a lot of pot shots at people. And one thing that, you know, we're reading about in the book that sort of surprised me is he kind of went after the musician John Mayer. I mean, you know, where does he get up on that, saying that if John Mayer continues to lead his life the way he is, you know, he's going to run into all kinds of problems. And, you know, he had this very, very wide vision and interest, you know, in music, art, technology. And so if he decided to dip into something, he would go there and become very, very expert at it. So it's a very broad look at really an amazing man.
All right,
Great
Andy.
stuff. Nice to have you here, Andy. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Still ahead this morning, defending Michael Jackson.